Welcome to the channel. It's Team Money Magic coming at you with some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle draft content. In this video, we're going to be looking at all the blue cards of the set. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to put up the card. Beside the card, there's going to be a letter grade. An A means it's a bomb. It's a card that's just going to win you the game. A B is a card that might not can win the game on its own, but it's a very, very strong card. You're going to be very happy to have it. A C is a playable card. It'll help fill out your curve. Some of them you'll keep, some of them you'll cut. You won't feel bad either way. A D is more of a situational card. It's something that might come out of your sideboard, or it's only good in a very, very certain situation. And then an F is a card that's just unplayable and limited. And with that, let's go ahead and dive in. The very first card in blue, we have April O'Neil Hacktivist. It is 4 mana. She's a legendary creature, human scientist at rare. It says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card for each card type among spells you cast this turn. She's a 1/5. I think this card's pretty solid. So 4 mana 1/5 is a little understated, but not like crazy understated. It's good for defensive value, but the big value out of it is drawing a card, right? So even on the turn you lay her down, she does count herself. So it's like you lay her down, she's 4 mana. It's a 4 mana 1/5 that draws you at least one card. If you're able to play her, keep her on the battlefield until next turn, and you have 2 different types of spells you can cast, or drawing 2 cards, it's going to feel great. Even if like the floor on her is just like every single turn you're laying down one thing and you get to draw 1 card after it, that's still a lot of card advantage and it adds up. And she's a kind of big enough body, like smaller removal is not going to do it. She's going to need larger removal to get rid of her. So I think all that makes her a very solid card. You're going to be happy to have her in your blue deck. She's not quite a bomb, but she's good enough that like she's going to help you close out some games for sure. Next up, we have April, Reporter of the Weird. She is 3 mana. She's a legendary creature, human detective. At uncommon, it says whenever April deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards, then discard a card. She's a 2/2. I don't think this card's very good, unfortunately. 3 mana for a 2/2 is very below statted. By that point in the game, your opponent's going to have ways to block this, so you're not going to be able to do what you want her to do. And even if you're able to draw 2 cards and then discard a card, I mean, it's not you know that like it's good value, but it's just not going to come up often enough for it to really matter. There's too many things that are going to be able to block this by the time you get it. By the time you get it online. If you do get it to go off a couple times, it's going to feel good, but it's just so situational. I just think it's going to be very hard to find yourself in a situation where you're getting this to do its thing regularly. And that's going to make it a card that you're going to be okay passing on most of the time. Next up, we have Bespoke Bow. It's for 3 mana. It's an artifact equipment. It says when this equipment enters, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has vigilance. You can equip it for 3. So a 3 mana bounce spell is pretty good. It's an artifact, which matters. It can help tempo out, and then you can start equipping it the next turn and swinging with a big threat. And all that makes it a pretty solid card. I think you're going to be very happy to take this. It's going to do enough for you by bouncing something, even if they're able to replay it, as long as it doesn't have like an enters a trigger or anything, which a lot of cards do now. So that does make bouncing things not as good, but it's still a solid tempo play. And I think you'll be happy to have at least one of these in your deck, especially if you're in like the red-blue archetype. Next up, we have Buzzbots. It's for 2 mana. It's an artifact creature. It's got flying and vigilance. It's a 1/1. It says when this creature dies, you get to draw a card. 2 mana 1/1s that have flying have always done decent. I think this is going to be in the same boat. The fact that it replaces itself. There's a couple of cards, like particularly, again, this is no one's going to be best in the red-blue archetype, but there's a couple of cards that can make your artifact creatures bigger, and this was going to be an awesome thing to have in the air that's bigger because of the vigilance. And again, like, worst case scenario, which is a 2 mana 1/1, and then when it's no longer on the battlefield, it replaces itself and you get to draw a card. So all that makes it a pretty solid common. You're going to be happy to take at least a couple of these, or at least have one of them in your deck. Next up, we have Crustacean Commando. It is 2 mana. It is a crab mutant soldier. It says when this creature enters, create a mutagen token. The mutagen token is a new mechanic. It's an artifact that you can pay 1, sack it, and then put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And you can only activate this as a sorcery. The crab mutant starts out as an 0/3. So I think this card's going to be solid. It has enough going on. So the green-blue really cares about mutants, and the red-blue really cares about artifacts. And this, you're able to do both of those because it creates an artifact when it enters, but it's also a mutant. So yeah, so I think it's going to slide in nicely with either one of those decks. A 2 mana 0/3 is not made for attacking, but something that blue likes to do is really kind of stabilize in the early game and then take over the game in the late game. And this has a big enough defensive stat. Like even if you don't have to put the mutagen counter on it, then it becomes a 1/4. That's still a pretty decent body to like be able to absorb damage and stop your opponent from running away with the game while you wait to get to the late game where you can kind of close them off. All that I think makes it a solid common. Next up, we have Dust Machines. It is 2 mana. It is an enchantment class. It says when this class enters, mill 2 cards, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can pay 2, and then when it becomes level 2, you can return up to 2 target artifact cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then you can pay 5, and it becomes level 3. And it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3+1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types. So it's a 2 mana do nothing, basically, when it enters. You do get to draw 2 cards, but then you have to discard 2 cards. You also mill 2 cards. You're going to need like a lot of artifacts. There's a decent amount of artifacts. I do think like even with how many artifacts you have, like especially if you're in like the red blue, it's probably going to be the best for this. There's still a chance you end up whiffing on this as far as like being able to return 2 cards from the graveyard to your hand. It might be a little bit too slow to do anything too crazy. If you are able to, do what blue does and dirtle around it up till you can get to the late game and you can pay the 5 mana and you can start making your things massive and you have a couple of artifacts, it's going to feel really good. I just don't know. I don't know how much time you're going to have in this set to be able to do that. So that kind of holds this card back from being anything too spectacular. But it's an okay card. I don't think I don't think it's going to break the game. I think if you get it in the right deck, it's going to really help you feel good. But like if you have this in your pack 1, you're probably going to go with something else just because it's such a situational card to get to go off, and all that I think holds it back from being anything too special. Next up we have Donatello, Gadget Master. It's for 3 mana. It's a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle. You can sneak it in by paying 1 generic and a blue. The sneak means you can cast the spell for 1 generic and a blue if you also return an unblocked attacker you control hand during the declare blocker step. He enters tapped and attacking. Whenever Donatello deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of a target artifact you control. So this is, again, another one of those, like, it's kind of situational. It has to be an artifact. So if you don't have any artifacts laying around, it's going to not feel that great. The fact that it's a 3 mana 3/2 that also is understated, it's not going to be the best attacker in the world. So like once your opponent knows that it's out there on the battlefield, it's going to be harder and harder to swing in with it. The sneak ability does make it a little bit better, but again, like it's still situational in the sense like whatever you sneak in, you can't bounce whatever you're bouncing. It can't be the artifact that you're wanting to make a copy of. And if they block the right way and all that's unblocked is the artifact that you wanted to copy, then you're not going to be able to do that with this. So I think once again, like it really holds it back from being anything too special. It's just kind of going to be a card. Like if you get it in the right deck, you might want to try it out. But even then, it's understated. Once it's on the battlefield, your opponent's going to make sure that they have blockers for it every time. I don't think this card's going to end up being able to do its thing very often. Except we have Donatello, Mutant Mechanic. It's for 4 mana. It's a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle. You can tap it and put 3+1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target artifact or creature you control. And it's a 3/5. I think this is much better than the first Donatello we saw. It's a good static body, 4 mana for a 3/5. That's pretty solid. And then being able to start tapping it to make things bigger and swing in with them. Again, this is all assuming that you have artifacts, right? You have to have artifacts. The good news is that even if you only have 1 artifact, because of its secondary ability, if that artifact were to go away, you can put the +1/+1 counters on any creature. So it doesn't have to go onto another artifact. So like there's a world where you lose the artifact, but then you turn this into like a 6/8, and that's going to feel really, really good. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a pretty solid card. You're going to be happy to have this. You're going to feel really great in the Is It deck, but even if you end up in like a mutant deck or anything, because mutant decks usually have like the mutagen tokens and things like that you can then turn into creatures. So yeah, there's a lot of nutty stuff you can do with this. I think you're going to be really happy to have it. Next up, we have Donatello, Turtle-I. It's for 4 mana. It's a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle. It says when Donatello enters, if you control an artifact, draw a card, and it's a 3/4. So, unfortunately, this is another one where like you have to make sure you have an artifact, or it's just not worth it. Again, I think there's a decent amount of artifacts. Like, there's a good chance you're going to be able to draw for it most of the time. But the times where this just comes down as like a 4 mana 3/4 and you get nothing for it, you're just putting an understated creature on the battlefield. I think that the upside of being able to draw a card makes it decent. I still don't think it's a card that you're going to want to take every single time. Like it's going to get cut from a lot of decks, but if you have enough artifacts going on and there's a good chance that you're going to be able to draw with this card, then it's worth at least putting one of these copies into your deck. It is a common and it is a legendary creature. So like once you have one of them, and there'll probably be a couple of them going around the table, picking up one of these just to kind of have it, speculate on it. I think it'd be okay in like some of the later picks of your draft. We have Donatello, Way of the Machines. It is 3 mana. It's a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle at uncommon. It has flying. It says whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Donatello. So these 3 mana understated cards that don't add immediate value are just not good. Yeah, this one is a flyer, but the fact that like if you're curving out, you lay a on turn 3. Even if the next turn, if you have an artifact, it just becomes a 2/3. It's nothing too special. Like, yeah, you can run away with the game in the right situations, but again, having an artifact consistently, like I think it's going to be harder than it might appear to be. There's not like a crazy amount of artifacts, and the ones that they do have, they're not particularly like broken or anything. Like they're just okay cards to have. I think that you'll get there on an artifact deck for sure. I just don't know like how crucial this card is going to end up being for that. Because it starts out so understated and any sort of removal is going to get rid of it. I do think that holds it back from being anything crazy. But if you're kind of desperate and you need a 3-drop, or if you have a plethora of artifacts that can really help this thing do its thing, it might be worth having the copy of it in your deck. Next up, we have Donatello's Technique. Is for 3 mana. It's a sorcery. You can pay 1 blue and sneak it in, and you can draw 2 cards. This is very solid. If it was just a 3 mana, draw 2 cards, like that's still okay. Like you'd be okay to have that. And the fact that you can even sneak this in for extra value, like let's say that you have 3 mana laying around, you have an unblockable creature, so you use and it's a 2-drop, and you pay 1 to sneak in, draw 2 cards, and then relay down that 2-drop. That's gonna feel incredible. Probably gonna happen a decent amount of times. I think you're gonna be happy taking at least one of these. You don't want too much card draw. Like you want to be adding to the board, and you want to be doing stuff. But I think this card is good enough. Like having 1 copy of this in your deck, you're gonna feel really happy about it. Probably because it's an uncommon, want to prioritize it a little bit, just because of the card advantage that it can generate for you. Next up, we have Fugitive Droid. It is for 1 blue mana. It's an artifact creature, robot scientist. Says this creature can't be blocked if an artifact enters the battlefield under your control this turn. You can pay 1 blue and sacrifice this creature, counter target spell that targets an artifact or creature you control. So this is an interesting card. 1 mana, 1/1 is fine. And it does have some upside. Now, again, you do have to keep the mana up. I think like, especially in paper, the thing on Arena is that a lot of times because of how it'll like stall if there's a play that you can do, it kind of helps you remember this ability. But like if you're playing in paper, you're going to have to remember this. And so is your opponent, though. That's like the upside of it. Like you can get an opponent off guard because they weren't really know, or they didn't read the card. Now, again, if you're a nice Magic player, you will, pre-release and stuff, you'll let them take back their play if they didn't know. But still, that's beside the point. I'm getting off subject. The point is, it's a decent card. 1 mana, 1/1 is always something that you're going to be okay to play with. We just seen over and over, like as we're getting faster and faster in these formats, like having a turn 1 play is pretty good. And then in a late game, when you can no longer attack with it, and then you're able to leave it back and sacrifice it to counter something, like that's going to feel great as well. If you're in enough of an artifact deck and you're able to just get this in every turn by pinging it because they can't block because another artifact entered, that's going to feel great. All that makes it a pretty solid card. I don't think you're going to take it. It isn't uncommon, so you're not going to see as many of them running around. So depending on what kind of deck you're building, you might take it higher than other times. I don't think it's super broken or anything. So it might be wheeling around the table a little bit later, and you'll be able to get it then. So, but all that, I think, especially in like the blue red artifact stuff, it's going to feel really great in those kind of decks. Next up, we have Kasuni, Dragon's Daughter. It is for 6 mana, including 2 in blue. It's a legendary creature, Fox Warlock Avatar. It's got Vigilance. It says whenever Kasui enters or deals combat damage to a player, you may exchange control of 2 other target creatures controlled by different players. It's a 6/6. So this is more for Commander, but you can still do some stuff with it in limited. Like if your opponent is starting to get bigger threats out on the battlefield, then being able to exchange your smaller threats for their bigger ones is going to feel huge. And then the fact that you can do this, whenever it deals combat damage as well, and it's a 6/6 vigilance, so like it's hard to block into it. It can kind of help you run away with games. Like if there's going to be a ton of situations where your opponent might think that they have you, and then you slam this down, and you're just able to completely change the state of the board. I think all that makes it like a bomb. You're going to be very happy to have this card. You're going to take it pretty highly. Next up, we have Kasuni's Technique. It is also for 6 mana and 2 of it being in blue. You can sneak it in for 1 generic and a blue, and it says target opponent mills half their library rounded up. This card's not good in limited. Like anytime you're milling opponents in limited, it's just you're not getting enough value out of it to do it. Paying 6 for this ability is going to feel awful because by that time your opponent probably might only have like 15 cards left anyways, and you're able to mill down 7 more cards. But still way too much time for them to be able to come up with something. This card's just not really going to be playable and limited. Even with the sneak ability, again, you're not adding anything to the board and you're not really hurting your opponents. I mean, when you're starting in a limited format where you only have 40 cards anyways, in most decks, like you're not milling out anything super crazy. There isn't any graveyard synergies really in this format. There's a couple of things you can do with the graveyard, but nothing too crazy. So you don't have to really worry about them getting things back necessarily, but it's still I just don't think it's going to be worth like a slot in your deck. There's just other things that are better than trying to mill out your opponent. Next up, we have Krang Mastermind. It is for 8 mana, including 2 in blue. It's a legendary artifact creature. It's a Ultron warrior. It has affinity for artifacts. That means it costs 1 generic less for each artifact you control. When Krang enters, if you have fewer than 4 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. Krang gets +1/+0 for each other artifact you control. So this card's going to feel incredible in an artifact deck, and only in an artifact deck. But like if you already have 3 artifacts down, then you're able to pay 5 mana, and the 5 mana that you spend, you're able to put a big, because it'll count itself, so then it becomes a 5/4. So it'll be a 5/4. And if you have fewer cards in hand, which is very possible in the late game, then you'll get to draw back up to the cards that you want. And I think that'll make this card feel a lot better. I think it's a good card. It's more so geared, obviously to artifacts and things like that. But even if you only have like 2 or 3 artifacts, especially like the card difference is what really helps it out this card. Like if you just don't have the cards, if this is your only card in hand and you're able to draw 4 cards, that's going to feel incredible. Like there's so much upside and the downside's not super terrible. I think it's a great card. Like you'd be happy to have this in your deck. Next up, we have Metalhead. It is for 5 mana. It's a legendary artifact creature. It's a robot turtle. It says when Metalhead enters, return up to 1 other target artifact or creature to its owner's hand. You can pay 1 red, sacrifice another artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Metalhead, gains menace and haste until end of turn. So this card's great. Paying 5 mana for a 4/4 is a little bit understated. You are going to want to make sure that you have the red mana. So either a way to like splash in red mana. They do have the tap gain lands that'll help you do this ability, or just be in the Izzet artifact deck that they're trying to build around anyways. But the fact that you're able to bounce something, like there's some enchantments and things like that that'll stop your creature from being able to attack, and like being able to bounce your own creature is going to feel good in that situation. Being able to get a tempo off and bounce to like a strong card, especially one that has like counters or something on your opponent's deck or in your opponent's battlefield, is going to feel great as well. So, and then you can make this bigger, and you can keep making it bigger just by sacrificing some other artifacts. You're going to have in like a green blue deck, you're going to have mutagen tokens laying around that you can sacrifice. Again, like in Century and Green, you're going to have to find a way to splash that red. Or if you're in the straight, Izzet deck, then, that's the artifact deck. So there'll be other artifacts you can do. Makes this a lot bigger. There is a world where like you're paying 6 mana in total, the 5 mana to lay it down, and then 1 additional red to instantly make it a 5/5 menace with haste. And depending on like what you bounce and stuff, that could just close out the game right there. So yeah, all that makes this a very solid uncommon. You're going to take it pretty highly. Next up, we have Mind Transfer Protocol. It's for 3 mana. It's an instant. It says until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/5, and you get to draw a card. This card's pretty solid. We've seen this in the past. There is a way where it's like you can do any target artifact, right? So like it doesn't have to be. It can be a mutagen token. It doesn't have to be a creature already or anything. And making something 4/5, you can really ambush your opponents with that, or you can get in for damage if you are already on the offensive and kind of run away with the game. It replaces itself because you get a draw card. I think this is going to be solid. There's enough ways that like mutagen tokens can come in and other things that aren't necessarily creatures that you'll be able to turn into creatures, and that's going to feel really great. You'll be okay having at least 1 copy of this, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see like more than 1 copy, and depending on what kind of deck you're trying to build. Next up, we have Mondu Gecko. It is for 3 mana, including 2 in blue. It is a mythic legendary creature, lizard mutant. You can pay 1 to discard a card until end of turn. Mondu Gecko becomes the color of your choice and gains hexproof from that color. When Mondu Gecko deals combat damage to a player, draw a card for each color non-permanent you control. So a 3 mana 2/3 is a little understated. Its discard ability does make it better, especially if you have ways to like get things back from the graveyard, or if you have anything that whatever matters is in your graveyard. It isn't mythic, so I don't think you're going to see too many of them running around the table. So the 2 blue mana does make it kind of hard to cast on turn 3, like to be able to cast this on curve. When you are able to cast on curve and you have ways to start dealing combat damage, that's going to feel great. But a 2/3 is not really big enough on its own to get in there right away or do anything crazy. The hexproof is going to matter. Like if they have a way to remove this and then you're able to put hexproof on it, like that's going to feel pretty good. But a lot of times you're just not really, you're not. You might be able to draw off like a card or two from this. If you're able to draw 2 cards off this, you're going to feel incredible about it. But I just don't know how often that's really going to happen. I think all that holds us back from being anything too spectacular. Like if you have a decent enough deck, you'll play it, but a 3 mana 2/3 is not that good. And the fact that it is 2 blue mana means there's a lot of times where like you're just not going to have the right mana to just lay it down on curve as well. And I think all that really holds it back from being anything special. Next up, we have Negate. It's for 2 mana. It's an instant. You can counter target non-creature spell. We see Negate all the time. It's more of a sideboard card. It really just depends on what kind of deck your opponent's playing against. Negate is a great card, but it is definitely going to be something that you pull out of your sideboard because it's very situational. And countering stuff in whenever you're trying to counter things in like limited, anyways, like you just don't counter things as often. Like most of the time, it's just about adding things to the board and then getting rid of your opponent's stuff by removal. So it comes up even less often in limited than it does in like the regular standard and modern formats and things like that. Next up, we have Ooze Spill. It is for 3 mana, including 2 in blue. It's counter target spell, create a mutant token. So again, same thing with Negate. You're not really going to counter things too often. The fact that it's 3 mana and 2 of it has to be in blue, like your opponent's going to see that every time. They're going to play around it. You're also going to feel bad if you just keep holding this up. Like if you have cards to lay down, but you're not laying down those cards because like you really want this counter ability to go off, and then like whatever you end up countering. I mean, unless counter cards are really good if you're going up against an opponent in paper and stuff, and you know that they have like a bomb that you just can't deal with. So then like you'll sideboard in your counter. And that's where these cards really come in handy, is more in like paper format. When you're on arena and stuff and you're drafting, you're playing one-on-one, or you only get one play against an opponent one time. You're just not going to want to waste one of your slots with one of this unless you're desperate for it. Leaving behind the mutagen token is cool. But again, it's more of a sideboard card. Next up, we have Ray Fillet. Man Ray, it is for 4 mana. It's a legendary creature, fish mutant. It's got flying. It says when Ray Fillet enters, create a mutagen token. Again, a mutagen token, you can pay 1, crack it, and give something a +1/+1 counter. You can only do that at sorcery. You can also pay 2 generic, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control, and draw a card. It's a 3/3. So 4 mana 3/3 flyers. They're just not that great. This does have a ton of upside. But again, like I think you really need to make sure that you're able to dirtle around to have this do its thing. The fact that it can like kind of do it with itself, it's still a lot of mana. So like if you have the 4 mana the next turn, I think there's a world where like you have the 4 mana, so you lay this down, and then the next turn you swing, you use 1 mana, turn this into a 4/4, swing with it first, so you get 4 damage in, and then pay the 2 to remove the counter to then draw a card. If you have other things that have counters on it, this is going to get much better. This is going to be more so in the mutant deck than the Is It deck. But I still 4 mana 3/3. It's just not enough. And again, like getting the 1 card advantage is basically like in total you'd end up paying 7 mana. You pay 7 mana in total to do this ability once. And that's just like if you had a 7 mana 3/3 that drew you a card and had flying when it entered, I just don't know how great that would be in limited or really in any format. I think it all kind of holds it back from being anything too special. Next up, we have Renette, Temporal Apprentice. It is for 5 mana, including 2 in blue. It's a legendary creature, human wizard. It has flash and rare. It says when Renette enters, return each other non-land permanent that entered this turn into its owner's hand, and she is a 4/3. So this is a great tempo play. You are going to have to leave the 5 mana up. This is definitely going to be something that you're wanting to do like on your opponent's turn. It's 5 mana, so it'll probably be later in the game. They might have double spelled, and then you're able to bounce 2 of their things. That's going to feel really, really good. I do think the ceiling's pretty low. Like having a 5 mana 4/3 that you have to lay down because your opponent's already running away with the game. That's going to feel really bad, and that kind of holds it back from being anything too spectacular. But when you are able to get it to go off, even if you just are 1-for-1, like you lay down 1 card and you get to bounce one of their cards at the end of their end step, that's still a good tempo play. And I think the upside on it's high enough that it's not, it's a decent card. It's not a bomb or anything, but it is decent. Next, we have Retro Mutation. It's for 3 mana. It's enchantment aura. It has flash and can enchant creature. Enchanted creature is a turtle with base power and toughness 0/1. It can't attack and loses all abilities. So these kind of situational cards, like you're still able to, it still leaves them a body, right? So even if it's just something that they can block with the next turn, like it doesn't just straight up remove anything. There's a ton of removal in the set that just actually gets rid of a creature, and that makes this one way less valuable. I just think the fact that it doesn't just straight up get rid of the card, just not good enough. There's a tons of ways to put tokens on or to put +1/+1 counters in this set as well. So, even though it can attack, it's still going to get bigger and it can still be like a decent defensive creature if you let it stick around too long. I think all that makes this pretty bad. You're going to be able to pass on this most of the time. Next up, we have Return of the Sewers. It is for 4 mana. It's an instant. It says target creature's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of the library. You create a mutagen token. We see this in every set now. It's kind of like the generic bounce. This is straight up removal, because it doesn't go back into their hand. They actually have to make a choice. They can either put it on the bottom or put it on top and then redraw it. And you get a mutagen token out of it. These always play great. You can always pick them up later. It always takes people forever to figure. I do think, well, actually, let me take that back because I do think that, especially with the last 2 sets, you're starting to see people understand the value of this and you're not able to get them as late, but it is a common, so you'll be able to pick it up later in your draft. It's going to feel great when you're able to do the thing and you get the mutagen token out of it. You can do it on their step too as well, and that really creates a lot of tempo for you, especially if you already have a creature out. You're able to use the mutagen token to make it bigger the next turn and swing in with it. Just a great card. You're going to be happy to have this in your deck. Next, we have Sewer Surveillance Cam. It's for 1 blue mana. It's an artifact. It has flash. It says when this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature. You can pay for sacrifice this artifact, and then you get to draw 2 cards. I think this card's excellent. Being able to have a good tempo play. So it is going to be one of those cards where you don't really want to lay this down on turn 1. You're going to want to wait till you can actually maximize the value of it. But the fact that you're able to do that in the early game, and you can do it one or 2 ways, right? Like if your opponent's swinging in, you can use it and you've already attacked. You can lay it down to untap your creature and then put them in a bad situation, maybe be able to ambush block. Or if you don't have a good attack or a good block, then you can tap their creature before combat, and it's going to prevent a lot of stuff. It's going to prevent them from using sneak. It's going to help you stabilize, and then you can just sacrifice this later, draw 2 cards. It's an artifact, which matters. I think this is going to be a great common. You're going to be happy to have this in your deck. Next up, we have Stockman Mad Flyinist. It is for 5 mana. It's a legendary creature, insect mutant scientist. It has flying. It says when Stockman enters, draw a card, then discard a card, and you can land cycle for 2. It's a 3/4. So 5 mana 3/4 that lets you draw a card and discard is pretty solid. It's a good body. It's a good flying attacker. And the fact that in the early game you can cycle it away to find land if you need it, that makes it a very flexible card as well, which is really cool. I also love the Mad Flyintist. It's just it's very flavorful. I like it for that. So it gets my A++ approval rating. I'm not going to give it that great, but it is a great card. I think it's going to fit nicely into your deck. You're going to be happy to have it. Next up, we have Turtles in Time. It is for 7 mana, including 2 in blue. It's a sorcery. It says return all creatures to their owner's hands. Each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their libraries. Then each player who does that draws 7 cards, exile Turtle of Time. So that's pretty cool. It really depends what kind of, getting to 7 mana is going to be really hard. Having the double blue, you'll have it by, 7 mana, you'd hope. But, the fact that it returns everything and then you can redraw 7 cards, basically resets the game. That's going to feel pretty good. It's cool that they have that in this set. I think it's a card that you'll try to play it. It is at Mythic, so you're not going to see them very often. So when you do get it at Mythic, it probably just you would try it out just to give it a go. I don't think it's a bad card at all. I think getting 7 mana is going to be hard, and then depending on how far ahead your opponent is or what kind of deck you're playing, maybe it's not really worth it because it is a May ability. So if they already like what they have, then they can just keep whatever they had and then just start laying it back down. Again, it is 7 mana, so there's going to be a lot of mana laying around by the time you're able to play this. So I don't have super high hopes for this card or anything. I do think most people, out of curiosity, you're going to try to give this card a go. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, especially in your pre-release and stuff. But once the format's been around for a little while, give it a go. Try to give it a whirl. But yeah, for now, I just don't think it's going to be a good card in limited. And the last card we have is Ultron Scientist. It is for 3 mana, including 1 in blue. It's an artifact creature. It says Ultron Robot Scientist at common. When this creature enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. It's a 2/2. So we see this card a lot now. We're starting to see it more often. A 3 mana 2/2 that taps and stuns something. They're decent. Sometimes you'll keep it, sometimes you'll cut it. It is an artifact, which matters. And I think that'll make it better than in the past and things, but it's still understated. It still only temporarily removes the threat. And I think all that holds it back from being anything too spectacular. And that's going to wrap it up for us in the blue. If you like the content, again, be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate you taking the time to look over my channel and review the set with me. Be on the lookout for our next one. We're going to be going over all the black cards in the set. And I will be trying to get that out as fast as possible because I know we got pre-release coming up And I just want to make sure that everyone has time to review the videos and get prepared as best as possible. Again, I really appreciate you tuning in and be on the lookout for our next one.